Hi everybody, I'm Ruechel and welcome to this portion of the PCS Journal, where we sit down with Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Michael Grego, to talk about things that are happening in our schools. Dr. Grego, good to see you.
Great to see you too.
You survived the hurricane?
I did, and we did.
Yeah, and we did. Yeah, and let's talk about that briefly, about the hurricane effort. And I don't think people realize that how many schools end up being hurricane safe zones.
Yeah, we opened up 17 shelters, and they are our schools. And I think you're absolutely right. I don't know whether people realize the administrative teams that came in and ran these shelters. They actually run the shelters. They don't just man them, but they run the shelters. Our principals, our assistant principals, food lunchroom service workers. We sheltered right around 25,000 individuals in our community, and we fed them 3 meals a day.
Oh, so you do get food at the shelter. See, this I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
You do get food as well.
We get food, and we have a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner, and it's we also house in our pet-friendly shelters. We house those 4-legged creatures too that come into us, and so we coordinate with that with the animal shelter, the animal community agencies that come in and certainly help us. But it's a tremendous operation, very complex. Not only the sheltering, and as you know, this storm was a long storm
and a record setter in so many ways. Yeah. So was that also kind of in the decision that most of the school districts made in the area not to open schools until Monday, because you also had to go back in there and reconnoiter the whole facilities?
The cleanup was massive. It really was, and no fault of the people, but when you put that many people into a shelter, especially with the animal friendly shelters, it takes a lot to clean up. But we had a lot of very hospital home kind of needy patients, critical patients in our schools too. So there truly was a cleanup that took place. Yeah. But the major part of it was the lack of power in our entire community. And Duke Energy did a fabulous job of bringing it back. But even as late as Wednesday, we had about 64 schools without power. So
oh wow!
That was one of the reasons why. And without the power, it became very difficult to clean up the schools.
Well, sure, that makes sense. Yeah. So who ends up paying for that?
Well, we are accumulating all of those receipts and the charges, and we'll be submitting those to FEMA. All the food charges, all of the cost of the administrators being on staff. But they work 24/7. We had 12-hour shifts for everybody. But honestly, Al, those individuals that manned the shelters, they were there for day in and day out.
Well, and then it's like they were there. What about their own homes?
That's always a balance. You know, one of the reasons why I gave Thursday before the storm off, and we got a lot. I received a lot of compliments and a lot of thanks from our own employees. We were preparing to open up shelters. We were told by the EOC, and the EOC is a deciding-making agency, but the EOC said we were going to be opening up shelters, and we were ready at 6 a.m. on Friday. And what that Thursday did was it provided all of our employees who had to man those shelters an opportunity to take care of their own families. They care for their parents, their grandparents, they have children. They had to prepare their own homes and such. So it was a really wise decision by ourselves and our board to provide that time to really prepare for the storm.
So then, as a parent, I would be asking, so how do we have to make up that whole week of missing school?
Well, we just received yesterday a memorandum from the Commissioner Stewart, and she provided us some guidance. Yesterday we got a memorandum stating that they will forgive 2 days, and so we're going to be examining the days that we have to make up. And you know, when we talk about days, the statute talks about the number of hours you go to school that have to equate to 900 hours in high schools, 720 in K through 3. So we're going to be taking a look at it. Without a doubt, let me go on record to say we have to make up some of those days. And even though the state's excusing 2 of the days, you know, the governor closed schools on that Friday and Monday as a state of emergency. Even with those 2 days, this is an instructional calendar. We want our students to gain those instructional hours as they need.
So did you have any problems on Monday reopening at all, or was it pretty smooth?
I have to say compliments, kudos to our maintenance department, who worked not only from the moment our last shelter closed on that Tuesday, Wednesday, but they worked 24/7 all throughout the weekend, ensuring that we had air conditioning ensuring our classrooms were back in order. We not only cleaned, but we sanitized every single room that was used as a shelter.
Wow.
But even those schools that were supposed to be or might have been used as a shelter, we prepared. And we had to unprepare those and bring those classrooms back into order. We invited, if teachers wanted to come back through the weekends, we paid them and to just come back for a few hours to ensure that when students came back on Monday, the place was ready to go. And I had my staff out in every single shelter on Monday morning at 7 a.m. And I can tell you that everyone there was teaching and learning taking place, and we were back in order. So just thanks to all of our employees, our teachers, our administrators who worked so hard to care for this community over this past week.
Yeah, a lot of people did a lot of extra time there. Let's talk about something else that's going on right now. Pinellas County now becomes the 12th school district that has decided to get involved with a lawsuit based on the legislature's move to provide more funding for charter schools. In a nutshell, why are you suing?
Yeah, actually, we just did this last night in our school board meeting. Mr. Kapersky, the board attorney, laid out a series of grounds that he believes and our board believes, and I do also, that we have crossed. It's an overreach into what's called the home rule. That is the ability of our locally elected school board officials to really manage and make decisions for our district, our Pinellas County School District. Now, in there, and by the way, last night also 2 other school districts, Wakulla and Alachua, also voted. So now we're up to 14 school districts.
Okay.
And pretty much over 50% of the population of the public schools in the state of Florida are involved with this. And so what we're looking at is the amount of resources that are being deterred from the public school system into other areas. Schools of Hope is one piece of that legislation that we're struggling with. And it's not the fact that we want additional schools, charter or others, that provide choices for students. It's the fact that it's not allowing our local school boards to make those decisions. One of the other parts of the legislation that we are having trouble with, and certainly Pinellas has become a little bit of a poster child for this, is that capital outlay, deterring money from our capital outlay account to charter schools and using the debt as a means of subtracting, because we don't have any debt. Our bill for that goes up to about $5 million compared to other school districts. So we're being punished because we are good stewards of our public dollars, because we're almost debt-free. If we're not debt, we are debt-free. And so those are some of the grounds of saying, let us make some of these decisions on a local level. Our school district also last evening signed a letter to the delegation, ours, and to the Senate President and the House representatives, of saying that if these things are resolved, we will be pulling out of this lawsuit. This is not something we want to
Resolved.
do.
Tell me how you want it resolved.
We want it resolved on the 4 or 5 grounds that we feel like that the lawsuit, that the 7069 is unconstitutional. I could certainly provide those specific legal grounds.
Okay, but unconstitutional is why, right?
It is.
So are you going to go back and then try to get that money back, or how does that work?
No, we're following the law. As it stands now, Al, we're working to follow the law starting July 1. We're going to continue on. In fact, I'll even go a step further. In our workshop yesterday, I provided a white paper to the board, a draft of potential ways to help resolve some of these conflicts of what we see are overreaches in the Schools of Hope and capital outlay. And we'll be providing those to our delegation and anyone else. And so we're not in this thing to just litigate for the sake of litigation. We're in this thing to say, how can we build a better public school system in the state of Florida, and namely in Pinellas County,
and do it constitutionally,
and do it legally. Yes, do it constitutionally. And if we feel like there's an overreach in the areas of certain areas, let's try to fix those. Let's work together to try to bring some resolve to that area. That's what I mean by, if the board sees that we're resolving those areas, obviously the lawsuit goes away and we pull out of it. I much rather spend our time educating students and working on the day-to-day work of educating our students and serving the families of Pinellas County.
All right, I'm going to kind of jump ahead because I want to get to some of the good news, because folks, there's always a lot of good news, and I get these sheets that tell me all of the wonderful things that are going on in the school district, and then I have to try to decide, well, how do I get all this great information out? Let's talk about Dr. Isaac winning the prestigious Queen Smith Award.
Dr. Isaac is a AP teacher out at Boca Ciega High School, and we submitted her as with the Council of the Great City Schools for the prestigious, as you said, the Queen Smith Award. And we were just notified yesterday about 3 o'clock, right before the board meeting, that she is a winner. She's a national winner. She'll be recognized in Cleveland. Wow. As we gather 70 of the largest urban school districts in the United States, and she competed up against that. And let me also say that we were notified yesterday, in addition to Dr. Isaac's very important award and prestigious award, that 2 of our board members will be honored at that same conference, Mrs. O'Shea and Mrs. Cook, both for their service of serving as school board members
They've been on a long time, haven't they?
In our district. So we're truly honored. We look forward to the Council of Great City Schools. They're a tremendous organization. They address some of the greatest needs of urban school districts across the United States, and it's a great conference, a great gathering of great leaders.
And let's get 2 things in here. Jacobson Foundation, which by the way has given money to the school district before, announced a $1 million gift in support of career and technical education in Pinellas County schools. Thank you.
$1 million.
Yeah, that's a lot. That can go a long way.
Yeah.
And that'll be for career and technical education in Pinellas County schools, which we're seeing a lot more students are making that choice because they can see a job at the end of their school rather than having to go to college, and which always encourage kids to do, but there's that possibility of getting a job.
It truly is. As you know, our foundation, the Pinellas Educational Foundation, has taken on career education as a mission, as one of their major mission areas. And the Jacobson Foundation, when Richard Jacobson passed away this past year, the foundation has provided, the Pinellas Educational Foundation, through Bob McIntyre's friendship with Mr. Jacobson, $1 million to institutionalize this concept about career education. Great. In addition, it's maybe not as well known, but he also yesterday provided $100,000. Still a very large amount. So yesterday was actually $1.1 million, but $100,000 to kick off the anniversary of Take Stock in Children. $100,000 to take stock in children for our students at Chichi Rodriguez's.
This shows how long I've been around. I remember when that program began. What does that tell you? The Take Stock in Children program. Yeah, been around a long time.
And it's celebrating its 25th year.
Yeah, tremendous. Yeah. So that makes me more than 21. Doctor, thank you so much. Now coming up, our second part of this program is we're going to show you what it's like in some of these schools that were being used as shelters. That's coming up right after we take this short break.